Hello everyone, Austin with the Limestone Library here. Welcome back to our online chess club. In one of my previous videos, we had discussed this position as a king pawn endgame position and what to do when you find yourself in similar positions to this. And just to give a quick recap, the main ideas of this position were to for black to get their king in front of their pawn, and it's very important to get your king far in front of your pawn if you want to promote this pawn and get a queen. So number one, you want to get your king in front of your pawn, and then number two, you have to get opposition. And remember, opposition is a very important endgame technique that you can use to quite literally push your opponent's king around. We can push this king off of this square if we, follow the right opposition techniques. And the third thing that you would then do is use shoulder. So that one I'll have to demonstrate. We'll do a few moves here, and we'll do this and here. So we get a position like this, and you'll notice black has their king far in front of their pawn. They don't quite have the opposition yet, though. There's an odd number of squares in between the two kings, and it's black to move. So we want it to be white to move, so we'll play this move, and now white has to give ground. White can go to the side or go backwards, which is rarely the best move, so we'll go to the side. And this is the shouldering technique that I was talking about. If white could just go back and forth between those two squares, then they're totally fine, they can defend. So we're going to sort of sneak by them with our shoulder and take away that very key defensive square away from them. So those are our main ideas in king pawn endings when we're trying to promote one of our pawns. So get your king in front of your pawn, get the opposition, and we'll talk more on that in more detail if, just in case that doesn't make sense. And then finally, shoulder your opponent, take away that defensive square from them. So that was the position that we talked about. And I have a few interesting questions here in this video, and I think they're going to have a lot of very different answers. So I really want to hear your answers from these. In this first one, I want to ask you, who wins this position? Or more accurately, does white win this position, or does black manage to get the draw in this position, and the white pawn is going this way? So if you'd like, pause the video, think about it. Again, does white win this position, or is it a draw? Now, I've heard very many different answers to this question, and usually they're all wrong. It's a trick question. Because of opposition, you need to know who has the move. So if it's white to move, which, well, it won't let me move white because I think it's black to, it's black to move in this, since it's an online board, it makes me move black. So if it's white to move, though, white does not have the opposition. There's an odd number of squares in between the two kings, so if it's white to move, that odd number, odd means opposite for this, that odd number means that black has the opposition. So if it was black to move, which it is, again, black to move, odd number of squares in between the two kings, therefore white has the opposition, and white will be pushing around the black king. So in a position like this, let's say black moves to the side, white will then shoulder, and well, we can't really go up this way, that pawn is going to start walking. So black has to stay in front of the pawn. Well, it doesn't really have to do anything, it is just a lost position. We will get the opposition again. Let's say black tries this side, white shoulders again, and this pawn will just walk up the board, and there's nothing that black can do about it. Can't even go there, we have to move away from the pawn, and then even here, it is just the queen, and that's all there is to it. So in a position like this, and this is a very standard king pawn ending position, in a position like this, it really depends on who has the move. You don't want the move because you want opposition. Now this next position, not this one, this one. This next position, I will ask the same question. Uh, well, a similar question, we'll say. Does with the black pawn going this way, does black win this position, or is it a draw? Go ahead and pause the video once again. Now here, after you've unpaused the video, here it actually doesn't matter. So if you answered it depends on who has the move, wrong again, unfortunately. It's king pawn endings are really rough. They are essential to study. You must study king pawn endings because they're very sharp. So, and by sharp I mean if you make one little teeny tiny mistake, everything can go up in flames. So it's essential to study these. And the other thing too is that these endings, they don't always have the most natural move as the best move. So there really is no substitute for studying king pawn endings. So here, well, okay, so why doesn't it matter? Why does black always win this position if they play the correct moves? The reason for this is, well, if it's white to move, that's easy. If it's white to move, black has the opposition because there's an odd number of squares in between the two kings. Piece of cake, no problem. If it's black to move, black doesn't have the opposition, so what do? Well, black is, remember, from the beginning of the video, black is far in front of their own pawn. And that means that they can just play a little burn move, and now it is white to move. Because black's burned that move, and, well, now white lost the opposition. And now it is white who must move their king and must give up ground. If they could say pass, it would be totally fine, but alas. So that's all there is to it for this position. And the next position, I want to ask the same thing. In this one, it's a little bit different. My question's a little bit different. I will ask, if it is black to move, can white win the position, given that white has the opposition? Go ahead and pause your video. Now here it's a little bit tricky. The one difference here that we have is that this is a rook pawn. And we are, over a period of time, we're going to learn very quickly that rook pawns are very annoying in the endgame. This position is actually a draw as long as black doesn't make a catastrophic error and run away. That would be the only way for black to mess this position up. But let's say black moves to the side. If this pawn were in the middle of the board, or just not a rook pawn, this king would move diagonal. I was going to point this way, but probably when I'm recording, that's not the correct orientation for how you're looking at it. I'm not sure. But the black king cannot move off the board and take this square away from, the white king can't move off the board and take this square away from the black king. Remember, that's the square that black wants. Black wants to just sit on that square. Well, the only way that white can get out of the way of the pawn is here. They have to go to this side. And white doesn't really want to go to that side. We want to take away that square. Well, now black just goes back to the square that they want to go on. Then white goes here. Sure, fine. Keep moving side to side. All right, we'll go straight backwards here. And then what you get at the end of this, again, as long as black doesn't for some reason run away, what you get at the end of this is this position where now the only move that white can play to guard the pawn is here, which stalemates our opponent. Black is not in check, so they can't lose, but they have no legal move because every move puts their king in check. So that's all there is to it. Rook pawns are really annoying, and it's best to avoid them. Maybe you don't ever find yourself in this position, but the knowledge is useful because maybe there were other things going on in some other area of the board, and if you traded down to get to this position thinking that it was a win, that would be a mistake. And, well, now you know you want to avoid these positions if at all possible. Similarly, if we talk about this position, maybe you've never seen it before in one of your games, but now you know it's an easy position to create, You know, you just have to be up a pawn and then trade off all the rest of the pieces, which that's not always easy. It can be, but it's a very sound strategy. Once you do that, you get to this position. You know it's a win. So it adds another position to your repertoire that you just know is a win. It's very nice. All right. We have two more positions to look at, and the last two, well, I've saved these ones for last because they are the trickiest. This position, my question is, well, we know what happens if it's white to move. If white goes over here, black goes here, the pawn is queened. There's nothing that white can do. Same thing if white goes to the other side, the pawn just gets queened. So, and black is going this way. So let's say in this position it's black to move. So if it is black to move, that means that black does not have the opposition. Can black win? Or is it a draw? Go ahead and pause the video. Now, this one, like I said, it's very tricky. It looks like it should be a draw if it's black to move. Black can move to the side. They don't really want to go backwards. It's very rare that you want to go backwards unless you're forced backwards. So black will go to one side, and, well, white will follow them. So white maintains the opposition in a good defensive position. This is nice. Okay, well, so we'll keep on pushing. White moves, we push, and now white has to go here. And then black can come right in and control the queening square, and they get a queen. So what the heck happened? Well, in this position, opposition doesn't matter because this king has gotten so far advanced to the 6th rank, or white's 3rd rank here. And since the king is so far advanced, it's an automatic win for the side with the pawn, provided that they play correctly. And the black king can even move to either side. It does not matter which side the black king moves to. So it's a very powerful position, once again, to get your king far ahead of your pawn, but also advance your king up the board. If you can create this position, even if your pawn's all the way back here, that's all there is to it. That's just a win. Then you just move your pawn all the way up, as white sort of helplessly shuffles back and forth, and you'll eventually win the game. Just to show it again, because when I first saw it, it looked like some kind of weird wizardry that should not happen. Why does opposition not matter? Well, this is the exception to the rule. If this pawn is anywhere else on the board, somewhere in the middle of the board, opposition matters. It matters a lot. But here, once the king is on the 6th rank, it doesn't matter. This is what's known as the 6th rank exception. All right. So if you thought that was tricky, last one. It is black to move. Now, we have the king on the 6th rank. So black, since it's black to move, black does not have the opposition. They cannot just push the king around. Black's king is on the 6th rank. Can black win this position in the same way that they won the position when this pawn was over here? Can they just move to either side and it's all good, and then you just push the pawn and promote? Go ahead and pause your video and think about it. Now, like I said, I've saved the trickiest position for last. If we move to the side and the white king follows basic defensive strategies, white will lose. You push here, push, and that looks like the same thing that we just saw. However, a big however, if we go over here and white knows this position, white will go here, which looks awfully strange, but there is a reason for it. Let's look at black's options. Black could push the pawn, and, well, in a king-pawn ending, when you're defending and you're forced to move backwards, you should always move straight backwards. So let's say white goes straight backwards here. Well, white goes straight backwards. I think that's what I said. If black continues advancing up the board, that's stalemate. There's no legal move for white. and white's not in check. If they push the pawn, the only other move that you would think of that would make any sense, white goes here, and now the only move to save the pawn stalemates the white king. So that's just a dead draw. Similarly, if we go here, white goes back. Pushing the pawn's a draw. So something's happened here. Black must come back here to the initial position that we saw at the beginning of the puzzle. And black has to accept now, this doesn't work. We can't go to that side. This is what's known as the knight pawn exception. It's, stay with me, it's an exception to the exception, to the rule. So, with a normal 6th rank exception, you can go to either side, totally fine, doesn't matter which, you get an easy win, you just push the pawn, and you know, that's not very difficult. With this one, it's a bit tricky. You might find yourself in this position even though you haven't made any mistakes. There are positions like that. You have to have sort of the familiarity with this position to know, oh, this is a knight pawn. I can't promote that this way. I have to reset my position, get this textbook knight pawn exception position, and then it's very important to take the edge of the board. As an attacker here, if you take the edge of the board, you prevent white from going to this key defensive square and stalemating themselves. So white will go here. Again, this is just, you know, when you're defending, you want to stay on the same side of the pawn as your opponent, usually, except in that one instance where black went here and white went here. That's an exception. Black pushes. White has one legal move. Push again. White has one legal move. And then there you go. And you have your pawn promoted. I hope you all enjoyed the different rules that I've introduced for king pawn endings as well as their exceptions. We are going to put them to the test next time. So if you want to be ready for next week's video, I highly suggest going up to this Learn tab, going over to the Practice section, and you can see I have not done enough of these practice puzzles. I usually just look through them and recommend them, right? But you want to scroll all the way down here and go to Pawn Endgames, and these two are excellent. Key squares and opposition. If you do these, you'll be ready for most basic and intermediate pawn endings. I highly recommend them. So, as always, I will leave some of my information down in the description. If you want to ask me a chess-related question, a programming-related question, or you want to play a game with me, just let me know, and I would be happy to. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.